So we have a show for you tonight, and thank you to everybody who showed up tonight. We were expecting to be to have nobody in the chat. We were like, "Wow, we're done." Stick a fork in us. We were destroyed. We got destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
These people. Anyways, folks, thank you for showing up tonight. Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. Those are the coordinates. That's how you can get a hold of me. That's how you can reach me. Got a show for you. And we're going to talk about some weird stuff. We're going to talk about Dogman. We're going to talk about Skinwalkers, if that's what these are. And then we're going to finish the story we did about the Black Swan. And I think we still needed to finish the story from Kima, didn't we?
Yep.
We need to finish the description.
Don't we have a mermaid story as well?
Yeah, the description of the Philippines.
Yeah.
The Philippines. So we got that coming up. We got all that going on. We have a Patreon. You want to tell people about the Patreon?
Yeah, it's a tier system that we have for our Patreon. It starts off at $10, and after 3 months it goes up, but it goes all the way up to $50, where we give away merch and our swag bags. Usually they contain either author books, whether they be Wolf's or other authors from around the community, also with some goodies, either a shirt or a hat. As you can guess, as you go up the tiers, they get better. So you can check that out. It should be at patreon.com/PRT podcast, which you can find in the bottom left right there.
Yeah. And I guess the skit we did was pretty popular on Facebook. So if you want to go check it out, it's on there.
It's pretty fun.
We had fun making it. So go check it out. And swag bags have been sent out.
Yeah.
Well, no, but not the 2Xs.
Yeah, I just sent out some, I think, the other day, and on a Monday.
Well, the other day being what day?
Saturday, I believe. Yesterday, yeah. So then, and also I'm going to finish that off on Monday. It's just I couldn't finish it because they were closing, and I didn't want to keep the lady too far past.
Okay, so anyway, the others should be out, though.
Yeah, they should be getting soon. I mean, I have it all set up and ready, so.
Hold on one second. So I'm just going to say this out on the chat. Dorothy, if you can meet us after when we end, that would be ideal. So we got a lot going on right now. Oh, it's been very hectic. We're going to let the chat fill up a little bit and see what we got going on here. Because I start talking, and then people say, well, I come on and you're talking, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know where you're at. So, who's this? Mondo Sensei, Wolf. I got your werewolf book, and it's amazing. I love the cover. Thank you. Have you started reading it yet? By any chance? But I'm glad you got the book, folks. You can get the book. The link is not up there, and also we got this stuff. Send your stories to Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. That's one way, or you can send it through. Some people are sending it through Instagram, and some people are sending it through Messenger on Facebook. It's however you want to do it. I mean, just as long as you get the stories to me, that's all that matters. And a lot of stories we get by talking to people out in the public. One we got from a restaurant we were at. I can't remember exactly what day that was. It's been a while, but we got one from someone who told us a story, or we gave a business card to someone. That's what it was. And they gave me a pretty crazy story. They were like, we didn't even, I don't think we told her about what a Dogman was. I don't think we told her. And then she messaged me back a couple days ago on Friday with all this stuff going on, and I apologize to anybody who's been sending me stories over the last week, which there's been several. Yeah. Can you make Lovecat an admin so we can get
Sure
more
it is.
admin? Okay. Make sure you got the admins. And Truth, you want to be? Let's see, because I can make him an admin too. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I know there are people watching us, and you're not going to get anything out of us, dude. We're not. No, nothing of that. Nothing's going on. I had made a video earlier that was just me talking. and it had everything to do with what needed to be said. So I'm not giving it any more time. I will say this, though. I spent Friday night after the show, I spent an hour explaining to someone who was being quite rude in my Facebook. Quite frankly, it was rude, I think. And they did go to my conference, and they were treated quite nicely. And I thought that we were friends. And then that wasn't enough. So I don't know what else you can do. If you hook people up and you're nice to them and you treat them with respect, and then you don't really owe them an explanation, but you still give them one, and you give them facts, and they still can't, make up their mind, and they go to the other side and, oh, you've inspired me. Well, yeah, that's crazy. Inspired you to do what? Well, I can't imagine what they inspired you to do. But it's kind of hard. That's a hard one. I can tell you that. Thank you for wasting my time, though. So moving on from that, what we need to talk about tonight, before we get started, there are several projects in the works with PRT. One of the things, I have to say this, and I have to say this on the show, and I guess I should wait until some more people get on. Sugar Butches is going to be taking a vacation soon, so we're going to have to find some people to pick up the slack. She's so good at what she does.
Yeah, she's a pro.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Letitia, how you doing? Rethink Inc. I haven't seen you in a while. Barton Nunley.
Fab Welder once said, I just got your Dogman book. As soon as I learn to read, I'm diving in.
Well, we know now that you can read and not spell. We know that's possible. To be a horrible speller.
Well, you can have the computer read to you now.
Yeah.
So you don't have to know how to do nothing.
Mm-hmm. And then you can just, spout out nonsense, We saw that firsthand. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, man. Yes, the moderators are great. They don't get enough credit. So one of the problems that we're having right now is trying to decide in what direction we want to take the show. We thought that doing the Thursdays with the discussions would be, and it has been kind of a hit. But Tuesday, we want to keep it to where we retell people's stories who aren't interested in coming on and talking. And then we just don't have enough time for everybody to come on and talk. When I first started doing this, I didn't realize how many people are actually experiencers. How many people have had multiple experiences. They've had more than one experience as a, it's not like you think it is, where everybody just has one thing happen to them or two things happen to them. That's a mistake, and a lot of researchers, they make that mistake. They'll talk to someone, and that person will have one encounter, and they'll just take that one encounter, and they'll ignore everything else. And I used to have researchers and authors and podcasters, other people who specialize in things, and they would send us stories from people. They would be like, "Go talk to this guy, from Paranormal Roundtable, and you can tell his story to him, and then he can retell it or whatever, or you can tell it on his show. But I don't cover anything but Bigfoot. I only cover Dogman, or I only cover ghosts. I only cover UFOs and alien abduction. So we became sort of a one-stop shop because I believe that it's all connected. And I don't care how long I live. I don't care how long I do this for. I'm going to tell you that I believe that firmly with all my heart, that it is something that does, it requires looking at the whole thing. And one of the things that I have uncovered is that if you don't ask the right questions, a lot of times people won't tell you. Now, if you go back to the episode where we talked about the Turkish lamp or Turkish dish or whatever it was like a covered dish. Would that be an accurate description?
It was like
dish.
gravy bowl, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the guy reached out to me to tell me about a Dogman encounter. He wanted to tell me that he had seen a werewolf. Now, his wife's cousin was a friend of mine, or is a friend of mine, and he was like, "You got to listen to this story." He saw 2 werewolves. Now, the whole thing started with that, and then when you're a seasoned interviewer, you know to ask the right questions. And then you're kind of like, okay, I can't just, I got to know where this came from. And so I started asking him. And then finally, I just ended up being, look, you got to start from the beginning. You got to go way back, because this goes beyond you just seeing 2 werewolf type creatures. In fact, that was a very small part of the story, really. It was a whole bunch of stuff that preceded that. And so, when I first started doing this and getting stories from people and going and retelling their encounters on DER, that was the thing, man. It was like you have to like go and get more out of it. Now, here's somebody that we're going to talk about this on the coming Tuesday episode. Name is Mark. Mark got in touch with me. Now, I told one of his stories on DER years ago, and he had an amazing story to tell. But I just told his Dogman story. Now, just taking his story, you would be like, okay, he had a Dogman encounter, whatever. But when you go back and you dig deeper into it, oh my gosh. I mean, it was I'll tell you that is how this story I'm about to tell you with the Skinwalkers, this is how it came to be. And then, but first, how we get started here. Now we got 300 people in the chat. What should we do? Should we do the mermaid creature from the Philippines, or should we do? And there's different ways we can do this. This is fun. We'll have fun with it. We can do that story, and you guys know that one, or we can talk about the Black Swan Inn.
I want to talk about the Black Swan Inn story.
Yeah, because you got scared there. That's why.
Yeah.
Or we can tell those in a paranormal potluck on Tuesday, and I could just do all Dogman tonight. I got one about a Dogman under someone's bed. It's a pretty horrific story, especially when you're a child and you see something like that. And then I got this guy Mark's story, who it went way deeper than just what happened to him that one time. It was like a whole series of events that led up to that. You have that one. And then we have, thank you for that donation, Shade Viking, Skinwalker, Texas Ranger. So, you have all these different stories, that we could tell. But it's up to you guys, the listeners. I'm going to see what you want. If you want to hear it tonight, or you can wait till Tuesday, it's your choice. Okay? We're just going to try and entertain you as best we can. Now, I did give my card to someone one day when I was at the Thorndale Meat Market a while ago. I mean, it was a while ago, like last winter. And this guy was like kind of interested, and I guess he's friends with the owner. And I gave him my card. I think he's friends with the owner. Anyway, he was talking to him. And he handed it to a buddy of his because his buddy saw something out while he was hunting down in South Texas. Now, that's another story. Now, that is something I don't know what it is. It's something in between a Bigfoot and a Dogman, and I'm not real sure how to classify that. We could probably say, we like to use that term, gugwy. There was a woman at the Paranormal festival that me and Ken Gerhard were talking to, and she was saying what they saw. And he said, Ken looked at me and said, Gugwe? And I'm like, I don't know. Possibly. If you look at that story from South Texas, and we have it like in a clip, an audio clip of it where she, whatever, tells the story. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to go about doing that one. Whether we should just play it on the live stream or what. But she tells the story on there. Now, the other story with the hunter, this one's very interesting because whatever it was there managed to get a hold of his jacket and tear it open. This happened to him back in 1994, and the guy that I gave the card to, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, is it okay if I give my friend this information so that he can contact him?" Absolutely. And then I didn't hear from him again for like a month or two or something, and then he finally got in touch with me, and so we have that story, which I thought was interesting, and I think it ties into one of these other stories. That now, one of the stories we were given, Tony and I were at Spinners, and this young lady gave us a story about being. She said she was. What were the words she used? Not kidnapped, but like
led away, kind of.
Well, no, she was like. First, it was like this thing tricked her to come to the window, and then she was grabbed. So I mean, she didn't use the words kidnapped. And this thing eventually dropped her, and it was only by the grace of God and 3 dogs that she had that kept chasing it. And she remembers being dropped. Now, that story is pretty telling, and I asked her this question. I said, "Why do you think it was a skinwalker?" And she said, "Because my family is Chickasaw." She's like, and I did research, and I talked to my grandmother. Now she's mixed, you could tell. And so she's Chickasaw and African American, but you could tell by looking at her, she's got a lot of native blood. And so after talking to her again with a follow-up conversation there, I believe her story. I met her face to face. We talked to her twice. And I believe that what she is saying is true. And what she said was that this creature and she was kind of actually eavesdropping on someone else's conversation, which is kind of what happened. And then she says, "I have a story to tell you." Because the person that was sitting there talking to us was talking about seeing a werewolf type creature, but she referred to it as a rougarou because she said she was from Louisiana, right? The first girl.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. She was from Louisiana, and she said she was Creole, right? Is that correct?
I don't remember that, but
Yeah, the first girl, I'm pretty sure she said she was Creole. And the second girl said I couldn't help but was listening. And we sat down and we talked to them. And she began to tell me a story about what she believed was a skinwalker. And when I asked her why she believed it was a skinwalker, that's what she told me. Now, apparently, her people don't necessarily call it a skinwalker. Now, her dad he's a Chickasaw. And they don't call it the skinwalker. There's some other kind of name for it. But it's like, that's what that is. It is a shapeshifter. Now, people, when they talk about the rake, they'll be like, well, and we never did get to finish the rake chupacabra thing either from 2 weeks ago. Now, I know I'm a little all over the place, but I'm trying to catch up here. People always say, well, the rake, it's not really a rake. That's a name. That's a catch-all name for, whatever. And then other people say, well, it's a creepypasta. It's not real. It never was. This isn't something that's a real thing. And so you don't really know what it is that you're dealing with, okay? And it gets confusing, and then people say, well, you should just stay away from that because it's not real. You shouldn't talk about it because it's not real. That's an opinion. It's not an opinion I agree with. I think that's a very bad opinion. I think that it is something that needs to be talked about because I believe that it is a real creature. Now, same thing with skinwalkers. There was this big to-do a couple years ago where some people were like, well, don't call it Skinwalker because only the Navajo can call it that, or only the Navajo, but yet that legend persists in like all the native cultures. Even native cultures like the Berber, from the Middle East and the Levant, they were there before the Arabs. Okay, they're tribes people, they're Bedouins, and they have stories of shapeshifters. And there's a creature like that. Now, these people, these medicine men or shaman or whatever, and once again, they use this type of wolf type creature to change into. Now, I've heard it said by some of these people that it's not really a wolf type creature that they're changing into. It is just appears to us to be, because that's the closest thing that we can come up with. And I've had people say you can definitely tell the difference between one of these shapeshifters and one of these actual creatures that is like what people call a dogman. And then I've had people say, no, it's the same thing. And I've heard it called werewolf, and that there's different ways to become one and whatever. Now, I have a question for you in the audience. Is it possible that maybe the rake is the same thing? Two things. I'm going to ask this question, and I want a response. I'm joking. Look, my question is, what if the rake, or at least one type of these rake creatures, is actually the skinwalker? That's what it is. Kind of like pre-transformation or mid-transformation. Or what if it's one of these things where one of these rake type creatures is just like it's like clay. It can become whatever. The other thing it could be is that is the shapeshifter. I mean, like that like it shapeshifts into whatever form it's going to be. And when you see it, that's what it is. Or could it be some sort of alien that takes over a human body? This is, somebody sent me this, which is interesting. Don't ever be afraid to send me your thoughts on these things, folks. I'll read them. I try to read as much as I can of them. I spent most of the day today reading stuff, trying to catch up. But somebody comes in, and then they basically inhabit a body, and it becomes, whatever that is. That's food for thought. Now, I mean, I don't know what they are. I don't know what you could classify them as. I have heard, and we've all three have heard, stories of Bigfoot engaging these creatures, Dogman engaging these creatures, talking about the rake. And like I said, when I say rake, I mean like these pale humanoid crawlers. Now, some people will actually believe, that this thing is some sort of undiscovered species. I really have a problem with these cryptids being considered an undiscovered species. I think that's kind of hard to take. For me, it's kind of hard to believe. I don't know. It's something that's just. It's not that I don't believe that they could be, but I just think that you're putting them in the category of like an animal. And I just don't think that's correct. I don't think that's right. I just don't. I don't believe that. And so I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm going to and it's going to tie it together a little bit. And I guess we'll start. I don't know, folks. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to start here? We have a bunch of them. Tell me what you want to hear from what I've thrown out there. All these different things. I've given you options here. Let's take a little vote. Dinah says, you promised a mermaid story. I did. I can do that one. Black Swan Inn. Yeah, Secret. I don't know if I would do that. Racks. Betsy, I think you're trying to say rake. Is that what you're trying to say? And Impromptu Truth says mermaid. What do we got? More mermaid?
A lot of people want the mermaid.
Okay, we'll start with that one. Like I said, we were in Kemah, and what ended up happening, we talked to somebody, and the name of this restaurant where we talked to this individual originally was called Pier 8. Great seafood. Am I lying?
No, it's out of this world.
Yeah. So you go in
It's
there.
fresh.
Is it still around? You should look it up. See if it still
I
exists.
think it is.
Yeah, let me see.
'Cause
Last
I know
time we
during
checked it
COVID,
out.
we went there during COVID and it was closed at one point and then they reopened. But go there and check it out. It's really good food, and you can get the seafood fresh right there. It's kind of like when you go to I forgot the name of the market in Seattle, Pikes. I think it's called Pikes, something like that, where you can sit there and they'll sell you the fish. But there, you literally bid on the fish up in Seattle. It was actually kind of a fun experience.
Well, then they go across and cook it, right?
No.
I thought that's what you said.
Mm-mm. The Filipino place in Pier 8.
Oh, no. I was thinking of Pikes.
You've seen them cook that. I mean,
Yeah.
You've been there. No, Pike's Market, whatever it's called, they just, you buy it right there and you just take off with it. If there was a place to cook it, I didn't see it. But so what ends up happening is we talked to this person about these things, and it was like, I think it was in 2020, and we were doing the show at that time, and the lady that worked there, she gave us, like, she said this is a friend of mine and she's seen something really weird, and it played off of something that we were told by the people that worked over at the amusement park, or what was it called, the boardwalk.
Yeah.
So what we were told is that there was this reptilian type creature, and now there's gators out there, okay, but there were no, this wasn't a gator, this was something else, and it was in the boat dock area, the harbor, and it came crawling out and then went back into the water, and it did not look, it wasn't human for sure, but it didn't look like a gator. It was like something in between a man and an alligator. That's all we got. We didn't get like a whole big description. They gave a short description of it. But we were talking about it to the people from the Philippines, and they were talking about Filipino legends and stories and things like that. And we got to know the people that ran it, and the owners pretty good, because we went in there, like every time we go to Kima, we go in there, which was about 2 or 3 times a year. But we would stop through there. We go to Houston, and we would drive all the way across to go in there to eat.
Yeah, Pier 8 is still open, by the way.
A good place. And we talked to a lady who, I don't know if she was a manager or if she was one of the owners, but she introduced us to this lady, and I gave her a card, and she's like, I'll get in touch with you. The story that she told me was that when she was a teenager, they were in the Philippines and they were swimming, and they encountered something come up out of the water. And this is the first encounter. In fact, there were 2 that she gave me. The first time it came up out of the water. It was the southeastern Philippines, and it looked humanoid, like it was like it had webbed hands, claws, and this is when she was young. I think she was like 15 or 16. This thing looked like, the way that it was described to me is almost like Creature from the Black Lagoon, but without the big lips and the big fish face. The face was more reptilian-like. It had more of an alligator, a short little muzzle like an alligator. It was greenish gray, or grayish green, whatever. And when it came up out of the water, it was in the shallows. It stood up, and it was about 7 foot tall. It was a big creature. It stood there staring at her and her 2 friends, and it never broke eye contact with her. And then it began to kind of wade toward them, and then it just dropped down into the water and started, like, you could see the water, and they were like, oh my gosh, where is this thing? And the water wasn't really clear where they were at. And so she was like, they were like looking around, and it was kind of in this brackish water, which they really weren't supposed to be playing around in there because there's bull sharks.
Yeah.
And so they were playing around in the shallows, and they thought, well, there's some mangrove trees, whatever. It's a shallow, we can get away with it, But they would get in trouble for it. And her mother actually spanked her and her brother with a cane, like a actual cane, like caned them for swimming over there. So she was really dead set and serious about not doing that. And so when this thing appeared the first time, she just thought, it was a one-time thing. They ran up. It was her and her 2 friends and her brother, and they ran up out of the water, and they ran like all the way back to their village. They looked back and they saw the thing kind of walking on land. But when it got onto the land, it could walk on the land, but it was like kind of swaying back and forth, and its hands were out in front of it, which were webbed and weird looking. It didn't look normal or natural. And of course, she made the mistake of having one of the girls that was with her was her younger sister. So she had a big mouth and said, "Oh, we saw this monster. It was a demon, blah, blah, blah." And then they got a good beating. Well, you don't take your little brother or sister with you to do something you're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Okay, they're just hired snitches. That's all they are.
Yeah.
So, and Tony could attest to that. He used to have Leah used to snitch on him all the time. So they end up getting snitched on, and then she said years later, when she went back home with her now husband, they went to go visit her home, and they did this boat tour. And where they went and did the boat tour was, she said, probably about 400 or 500 yards from where she was playing as a child. Now, where that spot was that she was playing, she said that it was, you could see it kind of from the boat, like off into the distance, right? Which leads me to believe that this thing may have been there for a while. Another interesting thing, she said when she was a child, there was another little child that she was friends with that would go swimming down there with her siblings, and one day she disappeared. Don't know if this thing was responsible for that or what, but they were all swimming, and next thing you know, they're looking around, and the girl that was her little bit, I think she said she was like a year older than her, or she was a year older than her. The little girl was gone. They never found her. There was no, and so they assumed that maybe a shark or something had snatched her up. Now, that may have been, but whatever did it very stealthily to where the other kids that were playing didn't notice it. They just said, "Oh, look, she's gone." That's it, period. So this thing may have been responsible for actually taking the life of someone. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened because I don't know, and the person that gave me this story did not know. What she did know was that when they were on that boat, they looked down, and one of the women that was with them screamed, who was an American, another American, which was her husband's brother-in-law, or her husband's sister-in-law, because they were there together. She screamed, says that there's something on the side of the boat, and it was literally hanging onto the side of the boat, and they ran over to the side of the boat, and then it just like submerged. The description of this thing, now, I don't think this is the exact same creature because she said this thing's color was different. It was more beige, like a brownish beige color. And she said that it had the same weird looking claws, and when it submerged, she still could see it going down into the water. And it was very quick, and it was over. But she also said that it was sort of skinnier and a little bit smaller than the first one that she had seen. So, and this thing it did have ears. The ears were like kind of pointy, and the ears on this one were actually bigger, like definitely bigger and more pronounced than the one she had seen when she was a child. The one she seen when she was a child did not have really big ears. She said that she remembers the like bigger body, bigger head, tall, but the ears seemed to like a lot smaller than this one. This one had like kind of bigger ears. And the nose, where the nose should have been, was just kind of like it was kind of cut off. Like if somebody were to cut off your nose and just you had that, And then it had gills on the side of its neck. So, I mean, it could breathe on land, I guess, and it was like an amphibian. That's my guess. I don't know that that's what it was because I wasn't there. But if I were to take a guess, I would say it was an amphibian. And she tended to agree with me when I said that. Now, one of the really weird things about it, and I think this is probably the most telling, was that when she was growing up, there were fishermen that had seen this thing. So she knows that there were stories of this thing, but they weren't like, it wasn't like, there was some sort of manhunt or whatever to look for this creature that when the child went missing, which would have been in the 80s. She said there wasn't like a big outcry or anything like that. These are poor people, villagers. But there was a fisherman that had said that at one point he was out there hauling in his net, a few hundred yards from shore. And one of these things came up onto the boat and was trying to, because he was caught in the net, its leg, the lower part of its body, had been lifted up in the net, and it was trying to tear its way through. Okay, so I don't know if this is right, wrong, or whatever, but there were 3 fishermen, and they all just started hitting it with oars and attacking it. They didn't care that it was caught in the net. And they have a name for these things, like sea devils, basically is what it translates to. And they're very mean. They're very aggressive. They're typically not friendly when you come across them or you encounter them. The legends are that they drown people, and then they eat you. Now, I asked this question. I was like, "Did you see a bunch of teeth?" She says, "Yes." On the one that she didn't see the teeth because the mouth looked like it was closed on the one that she saw when she got older. She did see the teeth on the one that she saw when she was young. Now, the one that she saw when she was a teenager had a gaping mouth with a bunch of teeth. And one of the things that she pointed out, too, she said that the stories are in that area that if you see this creature one time, you'll see it again. And she did, but not the same creature. It does sound like some sort of flesh and blood creature. Now, is this some sort of undiscovered species? I have no idea. But it could be something like these, we get these stories from like the Caspian Sea. We did the show. What was it called? Devil's or something, humanoid, something.
I forgot what we named that one.
Look it up so people can go back and read it or look it up. But so that's that story. They would occasionally find like fish, like bitten, just the head left, or, just pieces of stuff.
Horrifying deep sea humanoids.
Horrifying deep sea humanoids.
Episode 211.
Episode 211. And then one time they found a shark, a pretty large shark, a 6-foot shark that had huge bites taken out of it and claw marks all over it. So that would be indicative of something that was preying on this thing. So if you take all that together, I mean, you're looking at something that's, predatory, amphibian, humanoid type creature. Okay? That's, if I had to say, there's something, so I don't know. What does it say? Adam DeLorme says what? Just like the entities ate us Indians? Are you being funny or are you being serious?
What do you say?
I don't know. That's something he says Indians, like engines or something. If this is some sort of like dig at what this liar was saying, then you can.
Oh, he said.
Okay, all right, serious.
He said
All right,
serious.
that's fine, Adam, because I don't want that being that bull crap that he was saying. Taking things out of context and lying. Sorry, folks. Sorry about that, Adam. I'm on edge with these people. Messing with my life. So, anyways, I prefer the term Native Americans, if we could say that. Okay. What I said was on a skit because of what he said. That's, and then he twisted it.
I mean,
Anyways.
it's an accurate term anyway. Native American.
Well, yeah. I mean, just say Native American. But it's just easier to say that. So, Adam, what tribe are you from? Because it's hard to know who's who nowadays.
It'd be funny if he was actually like of Indian heritage, like from India.
Well, I mean, that's the appropriate term for somebody who's from India.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why they were called Indian is because they thought that they had discovered India. I mean, that was the whole Shoshone. Okay. So being Shoshone, then you must know some stories. Are you from the Wind River Reservation? Lamapee? Betsy says Lamapee. Yeah, one of my friends is part Lamapee. The Shoshone actually share a well, not they don't really, but they're on one side of the reservation, if I'm correct, right? And then the Arapaho are on the other side. Is that correct? I need my glasses in. What did you say? Duckwater,
Duckwater, Nevada.
Nevada, I guess. Okay. All right. Well, I think you've been around for a while, Adam. I think so. I just got to be real careful because we when you get trolled by 1,000 accounts, it's unnerving. So anyways, moving on from that story, what do you guys want to hear next? We got the Gugwee, we got Skinwalker, Dogman stories of all kinds, Bigfoot, whatever you want to hear. We also have a story that's from the what's it called, Black Swan Inn, that may or may not be ghost or cryptid. We don't know what it is. Paul says Black Swan Inn, real quick. Barton says Bat Squatch. Well, Barton, you're going to have to tell that story. You got that Bat Squatch story. That would be an epic story to tell. I'm holding out for Barton to tell that Bat Squatch story. What's the Bear Man story? Lauren, which one? We've got several. And in fact, we just got another Bear Man sighting out of the place, Llano. Out near Llano, somebody messaged me and said, hey, have you heard of this report? I had not. Something that me and Deborah Weatherly had both been looking into. So just reading the comments here. Lechusa. I got a few. Who were we talking to the other day? And they said that they had seen Lechusa like a bunch. Who was that? There was somebody we were talking to, and they said that they had seen Lechusa like a bunch of times. But they would come to their window.
There's a dude somewhere we were talking to.
Who was that?
Dang.
Oh, man.
It's hard to remember sometimes because there's so many people that we talk to.
We were out somewhere, and he said that he gets that when he was young, that he had seen like multiple of them come to his window, like they were like 2 or 3 at a time. I can't remember who that was. If it's you out there, let me know. Okay, so your dad, you said your mom's from Duckwater, Western Shoshone. Okay. Somebody had given us a story. I think they messaged me. I have to go look. I give my business card out all the time, and people will tell us stories. I can't remember who that was, though. There was somebody, he told part of the story, too. It was very intriguing. But anyway, I'm gonna have to look it up and figure it out. One of the things that I was going to talk about tonight, and I want to make sure that people understand this. Like, when you start talking about Skinwalker, people want to make this distinction, which is kind of baffling to me because they want to say, well, that's a Skinwalker, that's a werewolf, that's a Dogman. And my big question to everybody is, how do you know? Like, how do you know if you don't see some sort of shapeshift? That how is it that you can point at something and say, well, that's a Skinwalker? I mean, that's, how do you know? I mean, you don't. I mean, that's the thing. But you get a lot of people who just don't. What happened? Barton's not feeling good? I was talking to him just a couple hours ago. But you get people who will tell you, hey, I saw a Skinwalker. Now, the person that told me and Tony this story over at Spinners, there was somebody that was telling us a story, if I remember correctly, and then there was a person that said, hey, and then we went and sat at their table, and then they told us a bunch of stuff. And we were with Zane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember it was me, you, and Zane. But one of the things that this story involves, we'll just go with just keep going. We'll go with this one. One of the things that this story involved, which was really creepy to me, was that once again it involved like someone who was a child. Now, according to this individual, they believed that this was didn't they say it was a family member?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
they said it was like an uncle. Or something.
uncle. Yeah. And I think it was a great uncle. I think it was their great uncle or something like that. So there was a story that this young lady grew up with, and apparently, she claimed that she was a military child, whatever, and that this happened near an Air Force. No, not Air Force. It was an Army base near Fort Leonard. I guess it was Missouri. And she said that when she was a child, there were stories that her great uncle had stalked their family because he was supposed to. And this is going to sound horrible, unalive her mother. Now, she didn't get into the how or why, and it was pretty loud when we were trying to hear the story, but she was trying to tell us that this story was based on, and this is really interesting to me, how a person who plays with black magic, they have to offer some sort of sacrifice or whatever. So he chose her mother, which she wasn't native. Her mother was African American, but he didn't like her mother, and so for whatever reason, he chose her as the sacrifice, which she also, though, and it wasn't a contradiction, I think she just didn't know, but she said that this person's cousin, or which would have been his first cousin, to her, I guess would have been, I don't know how that relation was, but disappeared. Like, they went missing. And a lot of people believe that because he was into this black magic and whatever, that was the sacrifice. But apparently there was something that was needed beyond that. So the legend was that he was stalking her mother. And when they no longer lived in the area where where they were originally from, they believed that this thing followed them. And at one point, they had settled down in Missouri, not far from the base. Her dad was like an officer or something years ago. And this thing showed up while she was supposed to be being babysat. I'm like laughing about it because this babysitter got stoned. Her words, right? The babysitter was imbibing of the devil's lettuce with her boyfriend. And so her and her little brother kind of went to their respective rooms and played and did whatever. She hears a tapping on the glass. She looks up and she sees this thing saying hi, waving. She said that its face looked like a wolf. But when she looked at the face, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, a werewolf. She said it was just like a wolf. And she said that it was like pointing to the glass and it had a hand. She says she was 4, maybe 5 years old. So she walked over to the window. And now here's the weird thing. The window was, I asked her, I said, do you remember it being easy to open? Now listen to what I'm going to tell you. This is very important, I think. She said, yeah, I just walked over and I opened it. She said it was an old house we lived out in the country, and it was one of those with the wood frame around the glass,
Yeah, those are always impossible to open.
Yeah, exactly. But she opened it right up. One of those where the paint was chipping off of it or whatever.
Yeah, that's
from
pretty
what she
much
was telling me.
every house I lived in as a kid.
Yeah, she said it was like that. And I said, that's interesting. She says, every other time I'd ever tried to open that window, now listen to what I'm going to tell you, she said that it was always a pain in the butt to try to open. But that day, for whatever reason, she just lifted it right up. The other weird thing is, because she said there was no screens on these windows, and they hadn't been living there that long. She thought it was just a normal thing. There's this big dog that wants to play with her. She called it that, a dog. Looking back on it, she's like, it was a gray-looking timber wolf type creature with arms, which doesn't make sense, right? When it got her to open this window, it says, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Now, it wasn't to her, or what she told me, we're not talking about telepathy. We're not talking about mind speak. It was with its actual mouth. Think of like the story from our hometown, Anthony, of the dogs. Yeah. This thing spoke. with its mouth. It wasn't a mind speak, okay? When the window came open, she said yes. And he's like, he goes, you can pet me. She petted him, and he acted like a dog. He got down and was kind of like, yeah. As soon as she said yes, he grabbed her. She said she got startled by how quickly he grabbed her and began to take off with her. When they began walking through the brush to get away, like what she thinks, it was trying to get away from the house as quickly as possible. And she's like, we were walking through trees and all kinds of stuff trying to get away from this, the area where she was at. Now, I know that that's a very nasty, uncomfortable area because the soldiers from there call it Fort Leonardwood. It's called Leonardwood Misery. Like that's the nickname that they call this place because it's bad. It sucks. There's snakes. It's sweaty and it's nasty and it's hot and it's humid. So she says she remembers it being very warm. And she could smell its breath. And there again, now we've heard this story before, somebody else telling it. The breath, she said, smelled like rot. She could smell it, but she looked up at it, and it was just like a dog, and it was talking to her, and it says, everything's fine. Like, it was just like a man, talked like a man. She said, but just a much more gruff, the vocalization was more like gruff, not like a normal person. Whenever this thing was walking with her, she said that at one point it just set her down on the ground and then she couldn't keep up because it was holding her arm. It just began to drag her, and her legs were getting scratched up and messed up. At this point, and this is what I believe, and I'm going to tell you this is the truth. This is what I think is going on in this story, okay? What I was told was that she had 3 dogs. When this thing grabbed her, it was almost dark. By the time they were, half of the incident was halfway over, it was night. There were 3 dogs. And all of a sudden she hears the barking and she hears the howling. And it was like these dogs were on a mission. She knew that something was wrong, so she began to pray. And what she said was very interesting to me. She didn't say, God, help me, angels, whatever. She just said, Jesus, help me. Jesus, help me. And she was saying it out loud over and over again. And this thing shook her and told her to stop. And then even at one point, and now when me and Tony were talking to this individual, she's got a scar right here on her face, like kind of like goes back like that. She said that this thing cut her face. It's like a warning, like literally cut her face. And told her, shut up, and if you keep it up, I'll do it to your throat. Basically telling her that he was going to unalive her if she continued to huff and puff and make noise and stop crying. When this thing talked to her, it began to berate her, and then it began to call her, like, derogatory names and stuff. She's like, she knew that she had screwed up. Before we get into what happened, I want to go back to how this started. If you notice, this thing could have easily opened that window by itself. It didn't really need her help.
Yeah.
Physically, right? There was no screens, and it wasn't locked. Mm-hmm. When this thing did what it did, it was like, hey, knocked on the glass, it tapped, hey, open the window. Why would this creature, which she estimated, of course, this is a child, so everything's bigger. But she said it was probably 7.5, 8 feet tall, which is standard for what you hear about Dogman in this area, but I don't know about up there. And then she said that it was huge and muscular. But she said it was weird. It was kind of out of proportion because when she looked down, the lower legs in particular, everything looked kind of skinny. But she just remembers a very big, broad upper body, like shoulders and chest, very big, powerful type creature. Well, this thing's asking her to open the window. Now, why does it need the permission? That's the interesting thing. If this is just some sort of undiscovered species or animal or whatever, why would it need you or need your permission to open a window? That's the question. And it's something that I wondered about because I was like, you know, it's going to do what it's going to do. If it's just a normal, regular creature, and it's not. Now, the reason I think it would need that permission is because it's bound by some sort of spiritual laws. I think that it needed this little child's permission to do that. Just open it. Do it real quick. So don't do that. You know, just pow, open it up. So he's opening what is that?
It's a Starbucks drink.
Drink. Thank you for that donation, 86. We appreciate that a lot. But if you're an entity, right, and you're a bad guy, yeah, there would be some sort of rule or law or whatever. I mean,
as Rick said, your home is like a sanctuary.
Who?
Rick Asterstein.
Oh, yeah. That's funny because I just saw somebody else say that. Well, somebody had said that just now. So Joe, I'm trying not to wear my glasses, man.
Actually, Adam said it.
Adam
DeLorme.
Oh, okay. Oh, we were just talking to Adam.
Mm-hmm.
That's who it was. And then somebody says like a vampire, and then somebody says
Jason Broussard says exactly bound by spiritual laws.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which tells me that this thing was some sort of evil entity. It wasn't just a regular creature, but it had flesh and blood properties. It was absolutely flesh and blood because she was being carried off by a flesh and blood entity. Now, I believe that there is something to this. Now, if you're going to get technical, I don't think that these things can just do what they want to do. That's why people say, oh, well, if it wanted to hurt you, it would have. Bull crap. Okay? First of all, they can hurt you if they want to, okay? They can't hurt you just because they want to. If it's one of these creatures that's bound by a rule, like the cosmic laws, ordained by God. Now, I don't know exactly what they are or how it works. I know what I've been told and I know what I've read. Now, we could go over a million different types of religious beliefs and whatever else. And it's not really laid down in the Bible exactly about what the rules are for these creatures. All we know is that there's power in the blood of Christ and there's power in the name of Jesus. You can cry out to God, but Christ it says that he's the only way to the Father. So that's the only way to know who the real God is to go through Christ. Now, that's laid out in the New Testament. She did, interestingly, cry out to Jesus multiple times, and this thing was telling her to stop, and it was becoming agitated to the point where it cut the side of her head as a warning. And it was a scar. I mean, it left a pretty rough scar. So when this thing was dragging her along, she heard barking and growling and snarling, and it was like getting closer and closer to the point where it actually scared her. Her initial reaction to what she heard was some sort of rabid, vicious animals that were coming to possibly eat and kill her along with this creature, like maybe it was part of the pack or something. She remembers being very frightened and afraid of what was coming. And this thing, once she started to realize that looking at this thing, it was becoming sort of more frantic and panicked, and that it began to run and trying to get away from the barking and the growling and the snarling. I think that she realized, oh, this thing is afraid of these things too, so whatever is coming must be really bad. So her initial reaction was she was terrified because this thing was telling her, be quiet. You're drawing them to us. They're going, and then it said they're going, he said, with a man's sounding voice, with a very gruff voice, said, if you don't stop crying, we're both going to be killed. Now, years later, she said that she went over that in her head many times, and she said that she thinks that it was a warning, basically, like if these things killed him, it was going to definitely kill her. But at the time, she was just afraid of whatever was coming. Now, she had 3 dogs. One dog in particular was her pet. It was her favorite dog. Now, her dad was smart, and they lived out in the country, and what he got were really big, mean, strong dogs. I really got interested because she said that she believes 2 of them were part Mastiff, and then one, she said, was full-blooded. So I thought that was cool. And the dad, he's smart, like I said, and he armed them with spike collars. She doesn't know where they were at the time of the abduction. That's what it was, Tony. She called it an abduction.
Oh, yeah.
She said she was abducted by a Skinwalker. Couldn't remember that earlier, folks. I'm so frazzled. I'm tired. I haven't slept much. I've been just getting harassed 24/7. So, during the time of this abduction, these creatures were following her. She turns around, she looks, and she sees them. And I know this is an unconventional name for a dog, well, but one of them's name was John, which I thought was weird. But
Just like Willie's dog was named Nancy.
Nancy, yeah. But yeah. But I remember her just saying she couldn't remember the third dog's name, and it died shortly after this encounter. But she said that there was one named Saber and then one named John. And now it was kind of tickled. I said, "Let me guess, you named your dog John?" And she said, "Yes, I named him John." And she's like, I was like, well, I kind of laughed. I was like, there were no other names available. She's like, yeah, I wanted to name him Fire Truck, but that just didn't sound right. So my dad had a friend named John, and I thought he was a great guy. He was really nice, and he was a family friend for years and years and years. And we still, to this day, we joke about it. He's still a family friend or whatever. And so she named it Big John. So her dog was Big John, which was the son of the other 2. The other 2 were a male and a female. These dogs are basically a family. Now, she had a 4th dog that had gone missing like a few days before that, and it was a little smaller dog, and she couldn't give me what kind it was, like a mutt. These dogs were basically like Mastiff mix, or the dad, I think, was full-blooded, the mother was a mix, and so then, of course, the offspring would be mixed. She said the first dog there was John. When Big John jumped on this creature, went straight for its back and didn't let go. She said, it let go, dropped me. She's like, I crawled away, and there was like this little, she called it like a little bird's nest type thing where she kind of crawled into up against the tree. And these 3 dogs proceeded to fight this thing to the death. And I do mean death because one of them died. So they all began to fight and engage and whatever. One of the things she said, though, and she's like, and I know this happened. I know that this happened. She's like, this was not a figment of my imagination. I know this happened. She said that after one of them received what appeared to be a mortal blow from this creature, she said that she saw what she thought was a white light, kind of come down from the sky and hit this thing 3 times, boom, boom, boom. She looked up and she saw what she thought was a white wispy image, a large but white wispy image circling around this thing. That part right there, I had to pause and I said, okay, you got to tell me what that is. I can't, I told her, I said, it's dark. Did it glow? And she said, kinda, yeah. She's like, and I just remember it was floating around, going around the top of it. And she's like, and I saw the white, when the white streak, as she called it, the white, she called it a pillar that looked like a streak coming down from the sky, from this, whatever it was, this white wispy image. It was like it was searing the flesh of this creature. Like it was in pain, obviously. What was more telling, though, was that white streak was hitting all 3 of the other dogs, too. And when the dogs would get hit with it, it would just embolden them. And it was kind of like making them more, she used the words super powered, okay? I don't know, because I wasn't there. But, and during the course of the conversation, it was like, do you believe what I'm telling you? And I said, yeah, it's your story. All I can do is relate what you say. Right? But this thing, whatever it was giving this thing, it was giving this thing the business, and it was empowering these dogs to fight. Now, unfortunately, one of them Big John lost its life. It managed to get chased off into the woods or into the brush, whatever. It crawled and got away. And she said where they were at, it was weird. Like it went underneath like some trees that had fallen. And it was like where it should have popped up on the other side, it didn't. It was like there was nothing there. You know? So what ends up happening, these dogs lead her back home. And she said at one point she remembers like laying on top of one of them. They get back into the yard and then they begin to bark. Not before or after, she said, according to her dad, did those dogs ever exhibit anything other than normal dog behavior. They were not trained to face down a werewolf, and they were not trained, and they were not given any special, whatever. Like my dog was trained. I had a mastiff for years. But these dogs, I think she said that the one dog was pit and mastiff, whatever. And she didn't know for sure, but she thought the other one was full-blooded. So it created a pretty powerful offspring. And she remembers that particular dog, the youngest one, giving the most damage to this creature. Now, I did ask her this question, and I had to. I was like, do you think that there's any chance that this could have been a figment of your imagination? And that's when she kept saying no. After that, she was like, no, it wasn't. There was no way. I was like, this is a child, who could have imagined it. But the thing I believe is that when children, when they're young, they have an ability to remember or to see things for the way they really are. Now, after telling her parents the story, at first they were just kind of like, okay, you wandered off into the woods and then something happened, right? I don't believe that's what happened. Now, her parents had kind of accused her of that, and they were like, look, you got lost in the woods, and then the dogs came back home, and then you followed them, right? She couldn't prove to her parents that she rode on one of them's back. She laid on top of one of them because she was pretty worn out and drained. She said she felt like she couldn't breathe, that there was the energy had been taken from her. And I said that's probably because it was. When this thing was, when they managed to get back to the house, she said she just collapsed onto the ground. And then her parents come home and they find her laying in the yard. Now, here's the thing. They did not believe that she rode one of these dogs back. They just did not believe that. And she's thinking for years, they kept saying, you wandered off outside, you got lost because the babysitters got stoned, and you had, an imaginary encounter with something. Here's the thing. Her dad, eventually, after they were at a family function, I think she said it was like a wedding. She was already like 19, 20 years old. And it was her first cousin was getting married. And they were at this family function. And her dad's brother says, Uncle, his name was Daniel. Daniel, our great uncle, the legend, the story is that he was a shapeshifter. People claim that he could turn into a deer. Some people said that they had seen him turn into a wolf. Pretty weird stuff. She went to her dad and she said, look, I had had a few drinks. My dad had had a few drinks. It was a pretty nice wedding. We had a good time. And I told my dad, I was like, what do you know about this Uncle Daniel? Because she, at that point, did not know this guy existed. On the way home, she rode with her mother and her aunt. Her mother told her, she's like, you don't really know the story, do you? And she's like, no. Once the story was told to her about this guy, she goes, I was actually pretty angry. She's like, I was pretty aggravated. The thing that really aggravated me, she's like, is the fact that they told me that I imagined all this, but yet they knew that there was a story, like there was a precedent that was set a long time ago about this. There was a story about it. And the dad, when they got back to their parents' house, she wasn't living there at the time anymore, but they got back to her parents' house, and they were living up in Tennessee at that time. And she says, "How can you not have told me this story?" And he goes, I just thought it was bullcrap. And her mother didn't really take it that way. Now, her mother in private told her, "Look, I always somewhat believed you, but for your dad's sake, I just went along with it didn't happen." And she's like, "Well, you lied to me, your family, and this is your family." She's like, "So what happened to me?" She had debated for years. She was pretty convinced that it had happened, but for years she debated about whether or not it really happened. Like she would replay it in her head, and she goes, "I would go through long periods of time where I'm like, this really happened. And then I would go through periods of time where I was like, maybe this didn't really happen. Maybe it was just a dream." And she had, and this had her questioning herself for,
Years.
15 years.
Yeah.
So she was mad, understandably so. And she said that she was like, she's like, honestly, I didn't talk to my parents for several months after this. Now, let me ask you in the comments, what would you do? And let me ask you guys, what do you think of that?
If I were in her position, I'd be pretty mad too. I'd feel like I've been made to feel crazy about something that really happened to me, and then even though my parents knew that there was this story about this uncle that they were withholding from me.
That's funny.
Know.
Everybody's saying John. Hi, hey John. Are we talking about John the dog?
No, he's in the chat. It's Johnny B from Dogman Cams.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Oh.
Welcome to the show.
He's John Bell. He's one of Vault's good friends.
Oh, okay. Hi. Welcome to the show. Well, here's the thing, though. And I don't understand, like, I mean, I understand the anger because after what happened to me, and I'm not going to get into my encounter, but what happened to me, I was forced to sit in a circle with a bunch of other people, and they were telling me that it didn't happen, and I kept telling this therapist, Joel, who would smile like this with his glasses on, and I don't know how his eyes could, he squinted so much. How could your eyes even be open, Joel? I don't know. You weird, creepy dude. But anyway, my mother, eventually she was just like, that guy gives me the creeps. I was in a facility because I had gotten in trouble because apparently you're not supposed to break the law. And so ended up was, and then they said, well, this kid needs to go, get treatment, whatever. He's been drinking and things like that and smoking weed and everything, it was bad, so kid,
Drugs,
back in
and alcohol
had ruined my life. And so thank you, Cutler, for that donation. We appreciate it. Donations aren't expected, but they're greatly appreciated. And so we're sitting there. It's good to see you, Cutler. And I'm sitting there going like, I would have been mad as hell. And I told her that. I said, you know what? You need to go back and knock your parents out the box. Like, I didn't tell her that. Tony's like slipping her his knife. He's like, do what you got to do, man.
Hand one time.
No, Tony would suggest like stealing from them, doing it all sneaky.
What would you suggest? Pipe wrench?
I don't know, maybe like throwing like some dirty socks at him or something.
Dirty socks. That's what you get.
He'd give him a stern talking to.
Yeah.
Shake his fist. I'm tired of you people and your flying machines and your lies about werewolves. Well, the thing that really gets me about this, she kind of, she calmed down. She took it in stride. And then over the years, I asked her, we asked her, did you? And she's like, no, I never brought it up again. She just let it go. Now I'd been upset, and I was upset, and so I had to sit there in a group therapy, and then my stepmom decides to tell everybody, "Hey, well, tell them your story about the werewolf. Like like it was some make-believe thing. And I'm like, yeah. And my friend was with me and his family saw it. So, I mean, what do you want to know? And then Joel, I'm not going to say his last name. I guess it doesn't really matter, but anyways, Joel F., the therapist, was like, well, he was always doing that. It was so gross. And he would go, you should just tell us the truth. What did you see? And I was like, I saw a werewolf. Now we all know that werewolves don't exist. And I was like, no, but creepy dudes that are almost as bad as seeing a werewolf do, they're right in front of me. And so I was made to feel like I was lying. Now, to my mother's credit, she didn't do that. She was a lot of things before she had her first near-death experience, but she didn't mess with me about the and she got him off of me. And there were people with their kids, like adults with their children, like parents and kids all there. While Joel, the therapist, tried to get me to talk about the imaginary thing that happened to me. What I was told was, sometimes as a child, we think things are real, and they're just not. And so what you got to do is establish that there is a difference between fact and fiction. No. I know what I saw. And even though it would have been a quicker way to get out of and go back on with my life, and they kept telling me, you need to tell the truth about this. And if you don't, well, then you're just going to sit here for longer. 2 months. I sat there. Finally, I woke up one day and I said, you know what? Fine, whatever. They sat me down. My official therapist, which was this lady who, I kid you not, I don't know if this is just how I remember it, but I remember her looking like the Grinch that stole Christmas. Like she had this little weird nose, like a Who kind of nose. And then she had like this hair at the top, and she looked like like Jim Carrey's the Grinch. I'm not joking. I remember her that way. Now, sometimes memory's not 100% correct, but I remember her looking that way, but not green, just very pale. She was like if a rake bred with Jim Carrey's character, the Grinch. And she was very annoying, and she had these huge bags under her eyes, and she was supposedly only 30 years old. I don't know how you get bags in your eyes at the age of 30. And she would sit there like she was on too much lithium and Xanax. And she was just like, you want to talk about your experience? And I'm like, to you? Her name was Teresa, I remember that. And I was like, no. And she would get mad because I'd call her Mother Teresa. Because she told me, she's like, and I mean, what kid's not going to know who Mother Teresa? I did. I was, she was always in the news or whatever. And so she was like, listen to this. Her name is Teresa, right? She got the name tag, Teresa, right? Get this. She says, just talk to me like you would talk to your mother. So I caught on to that. Being a facetious kid and being a smart mouth is what I was. I was a very antagonistic smart mouth. I said, oh, so you're Mother Teresa. She's like, no, we're not here to call names and make fun. I was like, Mother Teresa's supposed to be some like holy lady. When I was a kid, is what I thought. Thank you for that donation, Jason Broussard. Appreciate it.
Very generous.
Very generous of you. And I'm like, no. I really don't want to talk to you about this because you're just going to make fun of me and you want me to tell you that it's a lie. She's like, well, the sooner you can get over this, the healing process of whatever it was that you really saw. She's like, I'm thinking it was like a large dog and it traumatized you. I'm like, lady, I was raised around dogs. It was not a dog, okay? But after 2 months of trying to break me, and me having to look at her Grinch that Stole Christmas face, I finally just said, you know what?
You're traumatized.
I've seen the light. It was a big dog. It was a big dog. A dog, and you know what it did? You know why it traumatized me? It came after me, and it was trying to ask me about my car's warranty, extended warranty. I was terrified.
Now give me those magic pills and send me on my way.
Yeah. She's like, okay, well, I guess we could just put you on some Melloreal and other types of ill stuff. I'm like, you know what would be best for me and my profession is if your whole family was on these pills.
Sounds like
I
you
don't
had
care
enough of
what's
those pills, lady.
yeah. And she was the most low energy, and looking back on it, she was probably pretty hopped up on them herself, or hopped down on them. Yes, Liberty says, I hate these therapists for you. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. And then there was another one, Dr. Probably shouldn't say his name. He might still be. And he had this really, really skinny body. And he always smelled like peanut butter. I don't know why. And he had this humongous head. And I'm not joking. He looked like
Mr. Mackey.
Mr. Mackey, okay. And when I first saw Mr. Mackey on South Park, I was like, okay, well, this guy looks just like my therapist, Doctor. I'll call him Allwater. That's not his real name, but he had a French name. Oh, okay, my name is Dr. Allwater. Okay, I'm gonna, But he would talk he would call me Joshua. And I would be sitting in the QR because I would act out because I wasn't being heard. And this is what he told me. And I'll tell you this. He came and he sat down with me. And this is what he said. Years ago, when he was a child, he thought that he saw a werewolf. Now, he was from France. He didn't have an accent or anything. But he said, we were in a place called LaSalle. I think it was called LaSalle or some crap. I don't know. I hardly listened to the guy. He was annoying. And I'm in the QR, and he comes and he sits down there with me. And I was just sitting there looking at him. He's looking at me, and he's like, Joshua, when I was young, I once thought I saw a werewolf in the French countryside. Maybe you were mistaken. I'm sure that it was just the overactive imagination of a curious child. And I said, no, Mr. Big Head, that's not what. And I literally talked to him because I couldn't stand these people. And I said, no, that's not what I saw. And then he gets real snarky with me as always. He goes, you could be in a juvenile facility. And I said, you know what? I'd actually rather do that because then I wouldn't be pestered all day with you. I could just lay around and do whatever. Sleep, play ping pong, whatever. And he's like, well, if you continue with these delusions, we can't let you go. Can you just tell us the truth? Because your dad and your stepmom are really worried about you and your mental well-being. And I was like, no, I'm not going to lie and tell you. So I didn't lie to him. I had to go talk to the other lady, and eventually they let me out because I just said, okay, fine. So now when someone brings me a story, I don't laugh at them and make fun of them and tell them that they're crazy and then, go behind their back and say like this other podcaster, and I'm not talking about VC, I'm talking about this other guy. He likes to do that. I don't do that. I don't make fun of people and their stories. Now, you want me to tell you what happened. I told you what happened. So you hold me there for 2 months until I finally say, this isn't true. My mother took the time to listen to my friend's family, and that was it for her. She believed it. Now, Anthony, she's told you she believed me. Yeah. And in fact, she had something that she believed may have been along that same vein 2 different occasions. Didn't see it, but thought it was. And like I said, I lament not recording with her, but she wasn't exactly in good health.
Yeah.
So we couldn't do it. And we couldn't really, I'm not gonna be like, come on, Mom, give me the story. You know, it's not that important that that my mother's needed to relive something. That was years later. But what's crazy is that these people kept me there, and they were determined to make me denounce what I saw. So I can only imagine what this woman went through and being angry, and her parents had deceived her. Now, that's not to say that what she saw was 100% like, that it was Uncle Daniel that did this. But the story was. And nobody had seen him a couple months prior to that, and then nobody ever saw him again that she knows of.
Well, I mean, at the very least, if it wasn't Uncle Dan or whoever, like the fact that they know about that story at all but still denied her story is just ridiculous, I mean, even if there was no correlation between the two, the fact that in your own family you have this a supposed skinwalker, and you'd still sit here and be like, oh, you're a little liar, you're not telling the truth, you went and wandered off, you're just being a bad kid. It's kind of horrible.
Yeah, I think we should listen to children more when they speak, and not be so quick to dismiss everything they say as just a child's imagination. Because, of course, a child is going to have an imagination, but not everything they perceive comes from within their own mind. I think they see a lot of what they describe. They actually perceive it, and they actually they may not understand it, but they can, like I said, they can see it. Like their experiences are very often, I believe, they're going through real things, but nobody hears them out because nobody wants to actually think like, well, maybe there is something going on here that I don't understand. Because parents can have an ego, and they don't want to admit to themselves that their child is perceiving something, going through something that they can't understand as parents. And if they can't understand it, then they can't help them with it. So their solution is just to deny it and try to throw it out, throw it over their shoulder. And it does a huge disservice to your son or your daughter, to your child. Don't trivialize what they tell you. They don't make everything up. Everything doesn't come from their imagination.
Yeah. Now, I have dealt with situations where there was a lady that was trying to get her kid to tell us a story. I mean, he changed the story like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, okay, maybe this is.
They're not reliable witnesses, but that doesn't mean they're lying.
No. He saw something. Yeah. I mean, we think he saw something, but we don't know what, because she was like, tell him what you saw. And it was like, it was like brown. And then he tries to run off to go play. And I'm like, okay, but I thought you said it was red. No, come back and tell him was it red? Yeah. Okay, so it was red and brown? No, it was brown. Then come back 5 minutes later. No, it was red. Okay.
Here's a picture. This is white.
This is a piece of paper. It looked like this. And so you got that too. You got people who say, well, my child saw this, my child saw that. I don't know what your child saw. Really, none of us do. We just know what the child said. Now, but then there are other cases we've looked at that were pretty, like the child is describing a werewolf to a T, and it's doing it over and over again. Okay, it's telling the story. And then the child is saying, that this particular spirit looked like a black, shadowy thing with a hat. And there again, it's the same story over and over again. So, that does happen, and we have dealt with cases like that. But generally, you can't just say, well, my child saw this, and so it's the gospel. But, I mean, I look at it now, knowing what I know now, especially like with the episode with the leprechaun in the closet. What's that one called? I know, Anthony, you were really disturbed by that one.
Yeah, I think I named that one Malicious Little Leprechaun in My Daughter's Closet, something along those lines. But yeah, it's something. I guess, like I've said multiple times before, there's just something about these small, little, tiny beings that unnerves me.
Well, and that right there, not to veer off subject, but that right there, I think, goes back to something in our past. I do. I think it's like a deep-seated past, something we dealt with. Not only do I think we dealt with giants in our past, but I think we've dealt with like these little
A number of
monitos, these duende.
creatures. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense because I think that's what apocalyptic dreams are. Because a lot of people, I mean, you're one of them. A lot of people have had like a bunch of different apocalyptic dreams, and I think those are like deep-seated memories of when, like that are like deep-seated in our past from when civilization rose and fell and rose and fell again.
Yeah,
I mean, because I don't think it's a coincidence.
that song "Infinite Dreams" by Iron Maiden. Infinite dreams,
Yeah.
I can't deny them. I love that song. And you know, what is it? He says, "Someone chasing and I cannot move."
Yeah, I
Standing
think so.
rigid, a nightmare statue. What a dream. When will it end?
I'm sure Shade Viking will paste all the lyrics in the chat. He of all people will know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and when you look at these dreams, I don't think they're all dreams. Like I was talking to somebody, I think it was last night, where we were eating dinner at Texican, and we ate dinner with the waitress there. And she's a fan of the show, and she might be listening now. And Jeanette, if you are, hey, and Leo, your husband. And so she, oh gosh, we were supposed to drop the book off to her today.
Oh crap! We were.
We did.
Entirely.
God, so much going. I was on the phone like all day with this.
Well, we're sorry, Jeanette.
Yeah.
We'll bring it.
Having
Monday.
to talk to an investigator and talk to all these different people to try to get stuff done. It's just, anyways, it's hard to. Folks, I'm gonna tell you right now. Please pray for me, and please pray for Anthony and Tony and my wife. Please pray for us. We need the prayer. We are in the middle of some stuff. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. I'm not gonna bring it up about what's going on, but we need some prayer because we are under attack in every possible way imaginable. And you know, just please. And also, I was on the phone with Blondes and Booze yesterday, and please pray for them too. They got a lot going on too. Also, please pray for Joe and Jesse Doyle from Helbin Holler and Jerry Williams and his sweet wife Ella, and pray for Abe Cius, and please pray for Bettina. Bettina needs prayers. We all need prayer. And pray for Barton, who's being very helpful and and Martin Groves, he needs your prayers. And there are multiple other people who need prayer right now because they're going through the same thing we are. And then there's Vault. You can pray for him. You can pray for Truth. I was talking to him today. There's just a lot going on, and I really believe that a lot's going to be revealed to us soon, and so that we can be done with this nightmare. It is a nightmare. It really is. I mean, it's just the constant messing with stuff. And so if you guys could just be nice. And then also, you know, there's another particular, I'm not going to say his name, but there's a couple other YouTubers who decided to get involved, and I don't know where the deception ends and where it begins, and maybe they don't either. So maybe if you could just pray for them, pray for everybody, and I'm being slandered and harassed, and just please, we need prayer, and pray for the people who are perpetrating it, that they'll stop, and maybe God will touch their heart if he feels if he feels the need to do it, because that's what needs to happen to put an end to it. Thank you, Kate, for that. We appreciate it so much. Kate, if you don't have anything from us, send us your information so that we can send you something. If you haven't bought the books yet, I'll send them to you autographed. You're always so kind.
Yeah, we definitely owe you.
Yeah, Larry Fisher, always helping. Larry's been struggling a little bit lately, and that's understandable. Larry Fisher and Sons, he's a sponsor of the show. He's been a valuable help. Thank you for reaching out to your friend. I hope what he says isn't completely accurate, because if it is, it's terrifying. But please, we are facing something like you can't imagine what we're facing. And people are taking it like it's a joke. Okay? It's not. It's not a joke to me. I've never dealt with anything like this. I mean, I've seen some things, but this takes the cake. I mean, this is it. Kind of sounds like that song. Was it Imagine Dragons? You were just talking about apocalypse, and I said, this is it.
Oh, yeah.
The apocalypse. Mm-hmm. Whoa. I'm waking up. Huh. Anyways, folks, just pray for everybody. Let's just make sure that we stay in prayer and we stand strong. We'll get through this, and I'm not bringing it to the channel. I'm not going to do that. You want to find out what's going on, go to Facebook or whatever. So here's another thing I was going to tell you. Now, we talked about that particular Skinwalker story. Now, here is one that we got from our good friends that live up in Wyoming. Now, I say this because it's funny. Adam, I don't know if you're still in the chat, but this came from my cousin who told me a story one night when we were there talking and hanging out, and he was talking about the Wind River Reservation. He spent a lot of time up there. And he was told by an Arapaho Native American who says that he believes this is true. Now, I'm going to have a guy that's going to come on my show, hopefully real soon. We're going to record with him. We got to get it done. And I'm going to ask you this question now. He's got some serious Skinwalker stories, this particular individual. But I'm going to let you in the chat vote. Now, I can retell the stories, for the Dogman stories that we got, and have them on Tuesday for you. Or we can try to record with this guy between now and Monday, or between now and Tuesday, and try to have it ready for you. And I can see what I can do. And if you're up to that, then we can just hear his stories. But then you'll have people telling their stories on Tuesday and then again on Thursday. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but it's up to you if that's what you want to hear. So go ahead and let me know in the comments section. And Ona Holly says record if possible. Well, we got to record either way. But we got several stories from different listeners that we need to tell. But also, this guy maybe and he's a Native American, and he sent me like photos from a powwow and everything. And you'll probably get to meet him on the show eventually, but I don't know when. But I didn't want to do Tuesday somebody telling stories, and then Thursday and then we have a discussion, because a lot of people like it when we retell the stories, because you get multiple different people's stories, not just one person. So I don't know how you guys feel about that. Susie, thank you for that donation. Such a very kind and sweet woman. It was really my pleasure to sit and talk with you during the conference.
You're awesome, Susie.
Yeah, you're an incredible person. And you all are. Everybody that's in here that's nice and polite and kind to us and has been so supportive. We love you. We appreciate everything. Curtis, no relation, but I wish we were related. You're like a brother from another mother, which would actually be my half-brother. He's literally, we have a different mom. Yeah, so moving on, I guess, you got a choice now. We can talk about the Black Swan Inn, or we can go into another Skinwalker story. Your choice. Choose wisely.
Choose wisely, but if you don't choose the one we like, we're going to go with the one we like anyway.
Or be like my friend.
It's the illusion of choice. Welcome to democracy.
My friend Dennis's dad, I told you about the weirdo. He would like, here's a sandwich with everything and nothing on it. And you're like, and then he was always like into archery. Like, I've never been into archery. I always wanted to. And I'm so envious because my wife says she used to do it all the time. And that was like one of her hobbies. And she's like, it's just something about shooting an arrow, and I was like thinking, oh yeah, the only time I remember doing that was one time where me and my friend Ronnie got into his dad's bow, and we were shooting the arrow, and I wasn't very good at it, and I shot one and it like went up and then stuck into the wall, didn't get anywhere near the target, and we were in his garage where he was like taxidermying and stuff, and I was like, oh no. So when his dad came home, Ronnie took the heat for it. So I owed him, right? Well, years later, we're like teenagers, and he like wrecks his mother's car, and he's like, "You owe me." I'm like, "Dude, that is not a divot in the freaking wall, dude. That's a Mercury LeSabre or whatever. It's a Buick LeSabre. I'm not taking responsibility for totaling that, as opposed to that." And we're lucky to be alive because You know, you're driving. You know that one drive we took. I think we went through there recently with. Was it? I don't know if we drove through there. No, we didn't drive there. We were with somebody and we drove through there, and it's Spicewood Springs. You know how you have those culvert and those creeks. You know.
Yeah.
So we're driving out in the country, and he goes. I don't know how, but he goes off of one of those, and then the car scrapes, busts everything underneath the car, breaks the axle, busts the oil pan, and then we flip in a creek, and then we flip again. I think it's probably the only time I've ever actually flipped in a car. Oh no, wait. There was another time I flipped like this, and then the truck flipped this way. So yeah, but anyway, we flipped in a car, and that when it happened to me, it was outside of Manor, over there by where Chief and Loki and them grew up. But we flipped. We're between Rockdale and Thorndale, and we're just sitting there, and that thing was like smoking and oil going everywhere. And he wanted me to tell his mom that I was driving. I'm like, you're out of your freaking mind. She's gonna be like, why did he drive the car instead of you? Okay, I was like, that doesn't make any sense at all, dude. He was scared to death, and then. Of course, there's nobody out there. Like now, back then when we were kids, I'm going to explain to you guys, we were in the middle of nowhere, right? And that area, people have seen Bigfoot, Dogman, flying stuff, all kinds of crap. So you're in the middle of nowhere, ghosts, you know. But besides all that, I mean, you're just out there, you know. And so you're at the mercy of whatever. And so we didn't have a gun on us. I mean, we were young teenagers, and we were out there. And he he messed up on the car because he was trying to. We had cassettes. He had a cassette deck, and he was trying to change the cassette. And boom, we went off onto the road into the creek. And we're lucky we didn't flip and die. But you know, when you're sitting there in that car, we waited for 2.5 hours before somebody finally drove up, and we flagged them down, and it was a farmer that hey, you need it. Because we could have walked, but it would have taken us longer to try to walk. Eventually, we figured we'd just wait till daylight, and then. So it was me, him, and my other friend, and Tommy, and so we were able to go and get back into civilization. But nowadays you just be like, well, I need to call whoever. We didn't have a cell phone back then. I mean, you might as well use smoke signals. I mean,
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, I mean it's nighttime and you're just sitting out in the middle of the country, and you're just like, we just sat there.
Let's get a flare gun.
Yeah, you're like whatever. But anyways, not relevant really, but kind of relevant. But anyway, my wife was into archery, and not like me, I couldn't do it. But so there was this story that I had about the Wind River Reservation, and the guy that was telling us the story, told me the story. He was actually hunting outside of the Wind River Reservation. And he was using, it wasn't on the reservation, but it was near it. And he was using a bow, like a whatever, like a composite, whatever. I know Sibylla Irwin. I don't know if you're in the chat, Sibylla. If you are, say hi. And because I know that you use that. Now, I personally have only shot one time. Like I said, I was like an 8-year-old kid, and it was, I shot one into a wall. I think I did it twice. Not shot into the wall, but I shot it twice, that was the extent of that. But I've always wanted to, and my wife now, she wants to take me to the archery range, and you guys probably want to go too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun.
I'd love to do it. I just have never done it. It's not something I've ever done. So, yeah, I know somebody the other day was like, oh, this guy's done everything, and he's seen every type of cryptid. When did I say I've seen every... Why do they keep... I've never said I've seen every type of cryptid. I don't even claim the Bigfoot story because I don't know, what that was. My wife saw it, and I don't claim that. The blue dog, that's not really a cryptid. I mean, we've kind of figured out it's been discovered. That's not even a cryptid anymore. So the only thing I've seen that I can say looked really flesh and blood, 100%, and looked like what we would consider a cryptid was the Dogman. And I may have seen one not too long ago. I don't know. I don't claim that one either because I don't know what it was. So maybe a couple times, I know there was the story that I told on Vic's show where I don't know what that was. Now, it may have been just a blue dog that was standing on its hind legs, but it was crunching on some bones. And as far as I know, I think that they drink blood.
Yeah.
That's what people say. And I don't know. Nobody really sees them eating anything. So, they're I don't know where these people keep saying I've seen all these cryptids. Now, the black dogs that I saw, I can't say that they were anything other than black dogs. What was with them was a spectral, I would say it had to have been something spectral, because anything with that doesn't have a normal tongue in its mouth and doesn't have eyes and looks like a rotting corpse. And I saw it with 3 other people. And one of them came on my show and sat right across from me at the table and said it. His name is Tony Duran. So when you look at those, I don't consider those really cryptid experience either. That's more of a spiritual thing. So I don't know where these people are getting this. I've seen every cryptid type thing. That's not the case at all. So anyways, back to the story. This guy was hunting, and he sees something kind of ducked behind a tree. And at the time, he said, he goes, it looked like a man. It looked like a man. And so it was it was behind the tree, and he saw like a hand wrapped around the tree. And then he said it turned and it looked, and when its head, he said it was so freaky. The head of this man or whatever, it looked to the left side of the tree, which would have been to his right. And he was like, it was so weirded out by it. He goes, it was like, I don't know what I was looking at. And he goes, I was staring at it, and I thought, and he goes, he lifted up his bow. He's like, I don't know what this is, because it had the head like of a wolf. Like it was not, it was kind of like it was shape-shifting, like before his eyes, but not really. Like it was a man, and then when it ducked its head around the side, it was like sort of, he said sort of like a wolf. Now, he didn't say it was like a wolf. He just said sort of. Now, sort of can mean a lot of things. And so I asked him, I said, can you give me a better description of what this sort of was? And he said, I don't know. He goes, it was like, how a wolf, he goes, you guys talk about these werewolf-looking creatures with the ears that stand straight up. I said, yeah. And he said, well, this didn't have that. He said it was kind of like the ear was kind of sticking off like a normal wolf. Kind of like the little girl story, where she's a grown up now. It's like almost my age, but when she was a child, she saw that. This thing had like partial, like a wolf's head. So part of the face was behind the tree, and then it was sticking out. But, what are you looking at? At this point, he said that there was a tongue that came out that looked almost like a human tongue inside of a wolf's head, but then it kind of just literally elongated and thinned out and became like what a wolf's tongue would look like, a canid tongue. And he said that it looked, like a werewolf. That's what it looked like. He said, and then he looks and he sees where the hand was. The hand had moved. And then when he said it popped out from behind this thing, he said, I'm looking dead on from tip of the toes to the top of the head, a werewolf. There is no other way to describe it. You can't sit there and spin it and say, oh, it was still kind of mannish-like. He goes, no. This thing had absolutely, in his mind, changed into a werewolf. Standing on his hind legs with the backward bent legs, everything about it seemed to be, it screamed monster, werewolf. And he said, now this is what's crazy. He said, dude, I felt compelled to walk towards it so that I could get a better shot at it, if I needed to. Because he says if this thing started running toward me, and he had the image in his mind. Now, this is weird, okay? This is what he told me. And so here is what, I'll call him V. What V told me was that this thing was coming towards him, like slowly, like kind of stepping towards him, and it wasn't really afraid of his arrow. I'll tell you why in a minute. As it began to get a little closer to him, it dropped down to where the arms, which seemed overly long, were hanging down in front of it and were kind of touching the snow, right? And then it lifted itself back up and kind of stood straight up. And then it did this repeatedly, kind of going toward it and kind of going down and then kind of coming back up. He said, I felt compelled to go towards it. And I'm like, V, you walked towards it? And he says, yes, because I needed to get a better shot at it so I could be a little bit closer. And if it charged me, he's like, I got the impression in my mind. And he said, I believe to this day, and this is when he told me this, he said, I think that this thing was telling me exactly what was going to happen. I had the impression in my head that this thing was going to run side to side, dodging these arrows that I was going to try and shoot at it. So, what happened? Oh. So anyway, the that's the impression, and I asked him this question, and I had to. I said, "Do you believe wholeheartedly that this thing was giving you that into your mind, like mind speaks, so to speak, And he said, yes. I fully believe that this thing was telling me what it was going to do. He goes, and then, he took it a step further. This thing was going to jump on him and tear his throat out and basically pull his top part of him away from his, this part right here. You know what I mean? I don't want to get too graphic, but you know what I mean? Like, it gave him that, it put it in his brain. Like, that's what I'm going to do to you. So he was shaking at that point, so he lowered it. He goes, and then I don't know what possessed me. He goes, but when this thing got down on all fours and started kind of not, he didn't say it was running fast. He said he was just kind of slowly trotting toward me or kind of in my direction, but at an angle. He said, dude, I just lifted my bow and I shot. And sure enough, it kind of just moved. It was like, he goes, it was so fast that he had the whole flank and everything, like its right side, and then it just turned real quick and it just, so then he took another one out of his, his quiver, and there again, he's like, dude, it was telling me once again, if you try to shoot me, you're going to miss. And so he goes, at that point, I lowered it, and I thought, what can I do? Well, I had my sidearm. So, luckily for him, he had a 45. He pulled that out. He dropped the bow and arrow and quit playing around and pulled the 45 out and pointed at him, and this thing laughed. Now, not with its mouth, it didn't talk to him like the previous encounter that this girl had told. No, this guy had literally leveled his gun at it and was like, okay, fine, are you going to dodge this? At that point, the thing kind of just turned, did a half circle, then veered off and went through some trees and was gone. He told me, he goes, to this day, I don't know what possessed me to take that shot at it. He goes, I just let go. I just let loose on it. He goes, I thought maybe I could beat it. And he's like, it didn't work. And he was like, he didn't know whether or not he should pursue it, at that point. Because he's like, it was a long ways back to civilization from where I was at. And he's like, I think this thing was going to double back and try to kill me. He goes, so I thought maybe I should track it down and just try to take a shot at it. And I was like, at that point, I told him, I said, okay, that's not a smart move. I was like, you're just going to have to look over your shoulder and get the heck away from it, which is ultimately what he did. But I admire his bravery, his courage. But for me, for my money, what would you do? I mean,
not that.
I definitely wouldn't do that. I mean,
Yeah, we just want to go home.
Yeah, exactly. And so he did. He got home. Now he was talking to his was not his brother-in-law, not his current brother-in-law. They're no longer, he's not married to his sister anymore. But at the time, he was talking to his brother-in-law, and he said, "Look, hey, good night, Barton." Barton says, "Good night, friends. It's a hot shower and some shut-eye for me. Much love to everyone at PRT." Thank you, Barton, for being a friend. Thank you for talking to me today too. And so when this thing did what it did, okay, he didn't talk about it for a while. And then one day he was eating supper over at his sister and brother-in-law's house and playing with his nephew and his niece. And they started talking, and he told them that story. And the guy that was his brother-in-law at that time told him, like, oh, my gosh, like you've seen what I've seen. And he's like, they started comparing notes. Well, he had seen the same thing in the woods. The conclusion that they come up with, which to me would just make sense, is that it was some kind of skinwalker.
Yeah.
Now, unlike what he saw, his brother-in-law didn't see a change. He didn't see something go behind a tree as a man and then change. Now, here's the other question I asked. I said, when you saw this man go behind the tree, he goes, dude, it was like he was there and then he wasn't. And it was, and I asked the question, I was like, did he have clothes on? He said, no. It was like guy with no clothes, behind a tree, wolf type creature. So it was like boom, boom, boom. Now, his brother-in-law had said that what he thought, what he saw, it was running alongside of his truck, and then it like ran, get this, it was so fast. It was the same description, everything. He said it like spider crawled so fast underneath his truck that going 65 miles an hour, that this thing managed to just go whoosh underneath the truck to where in between the front tires and the back tires, the back tires didn't have time to hit it. And he said that it was about 7-8 foot long from nose to tail. The creature that V saw, I think that like I said, I think that it was some sort of shapeshifter. It had to be. He said it was about 6.5 foot tall. So I don't know how long the tail was. Doesn't remember a tail until it turned and was dodging. Prior to that, he said he don't remember seeing a tail. Don't know. Don't know what it was. Linda, what did I say? Linda Nerd. I gotta get my glasses on here.
Linda Nerd Dreams. New subscriber here, about a month in. I love this channel, but hope I never see anything like this. I've been nonstop watching all the older videos to trying to catch up.
Somebody messaged me yesterday and they said that they were on episode 60. And then they just recently started watching the lives. So you got a long ways to go. There's a ton of material there. This is pretty much my whole life at this point, folks, when I'm not having to defend myself from the troll army. Yeah, I'm just, this is it. You know, this is what I do. So just constantly collecting stories. And unfortunately, you know, I'm probably going to have to scale it back and take a break from some of the groups and things because I'm just getting hammered. So, you know, it's amazing how people can sit there and perpetrate something against you and then turn around and say you're doing it. And that's what we're dealing with. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about, folks. If I don't, we as a team, this really hurts too. We can't approve any friend requests right now. And if you try to join the Paranormal Roundtable group and we don't accept you, it may not be something you did. Well, if you're listening, it's probably not something you did. It's just that we can't trust it to not be connected to this stuff that's going on. So I have to say that I had to reject someone. I don't know if they were real or not. And they started raising Cain with me. And I said, look, you just started your profile on September 23. Okay. You have hardly any pictures on there. If you are a real person, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And this hurts my heart because it is what it is. There's nothing we can do. I mean, we can't, you know, this person has achieved their aim to that degree anyway. And like I said, I've talked to about 7 other channels and they're having the same issues and we don't know what to do. You can't reason with somebody like this. They just double down and keep making up stuff. And I don't know. It's just a hard thing. And it really sucks because I like to interact with my fans. I like to, I don't know, just sucks. So anyways, folks, I apologize if you've tried to get in or if you've sent me a friend request, you have to have some pictures of yourself and be able to, I have to see on that Facebook, I got to know it's you, because we have been trying to kick out trolls, and they're all connected. We all have. And somebody has that kind of time that none of the rest of us have. They can do that, and that's awesome that he has inspired others to go start a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm glad he inspired you, woman that wasted my time, because he's inspired me to gargle Drano. So. But anyways, back to what we were doing. But just keep that in mind. If you send a friend request, it's just not right now. We just don't know. So anyway, when he compared notes with his brother-in-law, they believed that it was the same thing, very, very similar, and what they saw was 2 years apart. Both times it was during hunting season too. So, I'm not real sure exactly what to make of it, other than to say that I think it was like a Skinwalker. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no other way to put that. Does anybody have any questions? Another thing, too, what we're going to do, because the other day we had the Chupacabra versus Rake, and our equipment went on the fritz, and we couldn't, our internet was getting all messed up. So what we need to do is get back to what we were going to do and what we were going to talk about. More ridiculousness. You don't sleep, do you? Not when we're doing stuff. I heard you sleep all the time, but then when we're doing stuff, you got to be.
Well, devil never sleeps. Everyone knows that.
Remember, ignorance is alive and well.
So,
yeah, it sure is. It sure the heck is. There should be some things that are just off limits, but I guess that's not the case. Are you seeing that?
No.
No.
But in the chat, we got people wanting the Black Swan story. So Linda, Nerd Dreams, you said that you like vampire stuff. No, I'm reading the chat right now. We actually did an episode recently about vampires. You can go and it's, I can't remember the episode number, but it's a very recent one. You'll be able to find it on the thumbnail. It's just right there. It's one of our most popular ones too. It's got a lot of views. It's a really good one. So go check that out. So we'll get into the stories here real quick. We're just dealing with something for work. Let's see. Oh, okay. So you saw it. Well, there you go. There you have it. Let's see. Yeah, we appreciate y'all just being here with us and being patient with us. And, I mean, we got 600 people here, and we appreciate each and every one of y'all. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Shady Viking said, I also recommend a show called Black Eyed Kids All Grown Up. That was a really good one, too. That episode is I believe, if I remember correctly, it's one guy's story, but it's a long one. It's about how he was in a relationship with this woman who was one of these black-eyed kid beings, but she was actually very much, she became like actually in love with him, but it started out as kind of like a parasitic relationship. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's a really good one. So if you're a new listener, a new subscriber just joining us, that's a very popular episode too.
Yeah, I would recommend Immortals as my personal favorite episode.
Oh yeah, everybody likes the Immortals episode, and y'all are always asking us like, hey, do you have any more Immortal stories? And
Unfortunately,
everybody
no.
likes those.
The
Yeah,
good thing about Immortal stories is they don't really go anywhere. So I mean,
yeah,
they're long lasting.
Yeah, the truth of that is that, I don't think there's very many people, that are. So it's just, yeah, somebody said that Lyle Blackburn just had a great show about vampires. Yeah, he did.
He did.
He asked me, too, if to promote his podcast. So if you guys could go over there and subscribe his YouTube channel and check out his podcast. Also, Chris Garitano, his podcast, which is Off to the Witch. What is the other one? Barton Nunley's Inhumanoids, and all the ones that I named earlier. If you could just go and subscribe, and please give these people some help, because we all need it. We got somebody that's just running rampaging through the. I don't know if you guys did you see the BS?
Yeah.
I haven't gotten anything.
You didn't see it yet?
You didn't see that?
Nothing on my phone.
Well, go look at the.
Here, I'll show you.
You're not looking correctly. We got to deal with something just for a second, folks. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
I'll just show it to him.
How many people need to be affected before you're happy? What does it take? 1,000? 2,000? 10,000? How many people? You're not happy just sitting up there spouting off lies. You got to bring it to us. There's people that there's people that are innocent that have nothing to do with this. You could just leave them alone. Please. If you aren't a sociopath, please just leave them alone. Please. Leave them out of it. You got what you wanted. You ran Bettina off. I'm having to pull back. I can't accept friend requests. I can't do mail offs. You got what you wanted. All right? Is that not enough for you? I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. I didn't want this to have to come to the channel, but you know what? I just can't. This is ridiculous. People, and if it's not, then you need to get these people under control. Okay? Enough is enough. Folks, there's a time to stand up and be counted, and then there's a time, there's all day long, I'm trying to, because that I'm trying to prepare for, and you just can't, can you? You cannot just it's just not in you, is it? It's not in you to be that way. So, anyways, folks, what were we even talking about?
So the next story that we were talking about getting into that some people wanted was the Black Swan Inn story.
There should be, even in war, there's rules of engagement. You know, I mean, like there's just lines you don't cross or something, but there's no line, none, no line. There's people who didn't do anything. They don't deserve this. They don't deserve it. They deserve to be left alone. That's it. They don't want to be a part of it. Just respect that. Please. Please. If you are capable of that, just
Yeah. And I mean, look, I didn't want to bring this to the channel either, but one person in particular who Wolf is talking about is my own mother. This person attempted to harass her, attempted to contact her. She had like 8 different friend requests from profiles that she didn't recognize, didn't have any mutuals with them. They didn't have any information on them. They were clearly fake profiles. She deleted them all. She didn't even know what was going on. She just contacted me, said to me, "Oh, I don't know what this is. I'm getting friend requests from these weird people." So this is the caliber of person that we're dealing with. I don't like talking about it. I didn't want to talk about it.
we're not gonna. We're just.
But and she has enough stress in her life.
Yeah, my sister's not in good health, dude. Okay. Please, please. I'm begging you to stop. I'm asking you nicely. All right. We just want to be left alone. I will, whatever you want, dude. Whatever you want. We just want it to end. Just please. There's certain lines you shouldn't cross. Just leave us alone. That's all we want. That is all I'm begging you. That's it. Okay? You win, dude. I admit it in front of all of YouTube land. You win. You're the winner. Okay? We concede to you. All right? Enough is enough. All right? That's it. Just please. Leave people out of it. Okay? I know it's... don't think it's possible. You got up there. You got everybody to believe it. You got what you wanted. Dude, you know, you win. What do you want? What else can we do for you, sir? You're the victim, okay? You win. You're the... This isn't a game for us, okay? We have lives, and I have feelings, and he has feelings, they have feelings. You've already slandered us every way you possibly could. You had your people come up there and lie. You win, dude. Or okay, tell the truth. Whatever it is you called it. You said that was going to be the end. That should be the end. That should be over. It should be done. Right? It's not enough for it, or you, is it? This is fun for you. Well, it's not for me. It's not for everybody that you've hurt and made miserable. Moving on. That's it. Enough. You heard what I said. I know you're watching with one of your many whatever. Just, you win. It's over. Never say your name again, dude. Okay? You made your point. You have the people with the Kool-Aid, Jim. Okay? Just stop. God forbid. I guess I should have never said anything or stood up and said nothing. People are attacking me for standing up. And your buddy with the beard, yeah, you too. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy actually showed up at the beginning of the show. I had to get rid of him.
I know you're watching, Mr. Beard. Wonder how long y'all been working together. So, folks, anyways, I'm going to tell the story about the Black Swan, and we're moving on. That's it. Let me get my composure a little bit here. So So me and Anthony went to, with my wife, we went to San Antonio. Just trying to focus up. So we went to San Antonio and we went to the Paranormal Festival. Was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
We had a great time. Met a lot of people, made friends, and did what we did. We all had sort of a weird experience in this place. We went inside, and every one of us, we had stuff happen. It was, So anyways, there was a person that heard us talking about this place on the show, and y'all just take over for a minute, please.
Okay, yeah.
I gotta just get myself together. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize.
It's all good.
I'm just.
It's all right. These things happen.
Yeah.
Just answer some questions or whatever, please.
Okay, yeah.
Let me text this person. And just see.
One thing I was gonna say earlier for y'all, for the new listeners, the new subscribers that we have in here, and I'm sure there's a bunch of you. To the veteran listeners, to those of you who've been with us for a long time, if y'all wouldn't mind recommending some of your favorite episodes to them, and to the new listeners, y'all might want to get a pen and paper out and just write some of these episodes down, because yes, you can listen to our show from beginning to end, from episode 1 all the way through if you want. But I'm not gonna lie, some of those early episodes, they're pretty rough. The quality, we were still finding our footing. The quality's not really there, but the content's there. The content's great, but we want you to be able to enjoy your experience while you're getting to know what we bring to the table. So yeah, I mean, it's perfectly cool to just kind of skip around and find like what interests you, what catches your, piques your fancy, whatever. So yeah, just why don't y'all go ahead and, for the new listeners, recommend some of y'all's favorite episodes. And like I said, the Immortals episode, really popular.
Beware of Dog.
Oh yeah, Beware of Dog is a really good one.
Not for the people it happened to.
Well, no, but for the listeners,
You always got to keep it in perspective too. I mean,
these
these people went through this.
yeah.
I mean, it's easy to go, "Oh, that's a great episode," and then, like when you were talking about, I'm ready.
Okay.
When you were talking about the black-eyed kids all grown up, that was actually somebody who worked out with us. Well, and I didn't actually work out with him so much as I got to know him at the gym through another person that we met. And it's kind of funny. We were actually talking about a story from the Philippines, and the person that introduced us was Filipino. He wasn't, not the guy that gave us the story, but that story there in particular was pretty. It would have been traumatizing for anybody to have to go through that. So,
Church of the Forgotten is also a really popular episode.
Mm-hmm.
The Scarecrow, that was the guy from, was he from Kansas or Nebraska? I can't remember. That story right there, somebody said the Scarecrow, Bradford. That one. Just give you a quick highlight of that one. I think we did that one. Was that a YouTube exclusive? Was it a Halloween show or something?
Was it?
I believe so.
I think it was a YouTube exclusive.
Was it like an early episode? Was it?
No, I think it was like last year's Halloween or the year before's Halloween. The years are running together now.
Yeah.
It was either last year or this year's Halloween.
It probably was.
So what happened was this: when he was a kid, this guy, he was looking out the window and he could see in the cornfield, like his farmhouse he lived in with his grandparents, and he could see a scarecrow out there. And long story short, like some weird stuff happens. Like he goes to sleep and he dreams about it, but then he wakes up and there's like some hay or something, straw, like in his bed. It's crazy, dude. And that story, if you go back and listen to that one, there's some really good ones we got. I think the one with the there was another Halloween episode. I think it was a 2019 one with the water spirit, the woman Falcone, the guard, the security guard.
Yeah.
But we used to work with. He saw it, but man, that was crazy too. Anyways, it's 2.5 hours, folks. You know, and I'm a little bit frazzled. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I know people keep saying, "Don't let it get you," whatever. It's you don't understand. Like it's all day. It doesn't stop. It just when it affects people you care about, then you have to, you know, like Anthony's mother. You know, you don't want to hear that they're being harassed. You don't want that. You know, and they know to get to you. You know, I know you're like, hey, don't do it because then it lets you know them whatever. But then it gets to a point where it's like, dude, come on. You know, I mean, I have my limits. You know, everybody does, and I'm just that's my sister that I care about, and I would appreciate if they would just not mess with her. And I know, I'm going to tell you this 100%, Anthony and Tony did not do anything to these people. That's bull crap that they're trying to peddle. We're not that way. You know, and then that woman trying to say things about me, I never threatened her. That's a lie. Those are lies, dude. Never did those things. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to get into it, dude. It's too much. It's too much, man. This is why I don't need this crap. I could just, you know, I don't have to do this. This is just, you know, it's fun, but when you're not being... All right, folks, I'm going to head out, man. This is, you know, it's been fun. Thank you for everybody who donated. Thank you for everything. We still got to record for Tuesday, so tune in on Tuesday. And Gil, I still got to get your story. I know your story, Gil, but I need to get it in its entirety. Thank you for everybody who showed up. We can't do the giveaways anymore as per legal advice because somebody was using it against us now, so. Oh, boy. Just hope things get better. That's all you can do. Thank you. We love you. We love our fans.
Absolutely. We're grateful to y'all. We're grateful to God for sending y'all to us, and we're gonna keep on keeping on, like Joe Dirt says, and everything's gonna be okay.
And you know, folks, somebody told me that I needed to not say anything on Facebook, or I needed to not respond, or I needed to not make a skit or whatever. What else can I do? What outlet do I have? What can I do right now? Until these things, you know, we're able to make it stop, there's really nothing else I can do. I don't know what these people want. They get upset when I whatever. And you're not the one dealing with this. If you were dealing with it, you would understand. So just keep that in perspective.
Yeah, it's easy from the outside looking in to say, "Oh, just ignore it, just let it go until it happens to you." But see, that's one thing if it just happens to you. But that's not the case here. When people who call you a friend, when people who you call a friend, who you tell these people, "I care about you," and they tell you the same thing, when their names get dragged through the mud and you still choose to just let it go, just ignore it, those people you care about, they're going to remember that. They're going to remember that you did nothing when they were suffering. And the person who put them through that suffering, they're going to remember that you did nothing when they decided to act up the way they did too. And these people who are malevolent people who repeat these malicious behaviors, the reason they do that is because of this mentality of let it go, ignore it, and it'll go away. And sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. That's not always the appropriate response. And I've said this before, and I'm going to reiterate it. Okay, there's a time for everything under the sun. There's a time to let it go, and there's a time to speak up. So please try to understand. Try to look at the world with eyes beyond your own. You know, that's what perception is. It's perceiving how other people perceive the world. That you have your perception, and that's your reality, but your reality is not someone else's reality. You know, how is Wolf perceiving the world? How is Tony perceiving the world? Not just how am I perceiving the world? You know, and how is this person perceiving me? How are they perceiving me? Perceiving them? You know, it's very easy to make judgment calls when these things aren't happening to you, and when they're not happening to people that you love, and when you're not the one being accused of committing a very serious crime, like me and Tony are. And I have no idea where that came from, but it doesn't matter because it's just insanity. With some people, there's just nothing to figure out. There is no figuring them out. They're just lost. And that's what we're dealing with here. And this whole thing happened because the people who were there for us and the people who we were there for, they have all suffered and they were all harassed. They were all given grief from the same source. So we chose to stand with them. And this is not about being petty. This is not about some foolish pride. No, this is completely different. So if you're going to still have this mindset of ignore it, let it go, blah, 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 that's fine. It's your mind. You can do what you want with your mind. But please just step out of the way. All right? The time to let it go will be when it's resolved. Until then, just move. Be quiet, get out of the way, sit down, and go do whatever it is you do. Please.
Yeah, and when our friends, like what you know, with like Abe and Bettina and all the things that were being said, and I didn't watch this person's farce, this kangaroo court. It hurts because I saw my friends hurting, and I saw Abe hurting, and I saw Bettina hurting, and you know, Hellbent Holler, and everybody else that this guy's affected, and Jerry and Ella. I mean, just, you know, your friends, you want to help, you want to do whatever it is you can do, but you can't, and you know the truth, and you have to wait. You have to. This is one of the hardest things that you have to do. This isn't one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. Somebody asked me that, and I said, no, I've been through a lot. It's still just very uncomfortable. It's like having, you know, a really bad flu and it just won't get better. And you have other people getting involved and just throwing shade on you. And shame on you, shame on them for doing that. Because it's, you know, the whole community is about to break out into a civil war because somebody wants to play games. I just can't. I don't know. It's just disgusting. It's disgusting. I defended my friends, and I'd do it again. You know, somebody said, oh, I bet you think twice next time. No, I won't. From his camp. I said, no, I won't. You attack my friends, I'll defend. No matter what it means, I'm going to do whatever I would do it for any one of you out there. I'm not going to let people attack us. I'm not going to let people attack you. I'm going to stand with you. So, folks, thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry we didn't get to the Black Swan episode, the story, but I will, and I apologize to you who gave me the story. we'll get it. We'll do it. I'm sorry. We got to go. Thank you very much for supporting Paranormal Roundtable. I got to take care of some things, and then we got to record an episode for Tuesday. So good night. Thank you. We can record. Y'all feel like recording?
Yeah, I'm okay.